Hello everyone and welcome to this ProACTive tutoring video. In this lesson, we are going to continue our discussion on functions by looking at different composition of functions. So let's get started. So first, what exactly is a composition of functions? So a composition of functions is essentially a function nested inside another function. So what do I mean by this? Well, let's look at an example. Let's say we have a function f of x, which is equal to x squared. And let's say we have a function g of x, so it's that g of x is equal to 2x. Now we know that we can plug in numerical inputs for f, and our output will be that number squared. And we know we can plug in numerical inputs for g, and our output will be double our input. And we looked in the previous video at just inputting numerical values into functions. Like, for example, f of 2. Since we're replacing x with 2, we have to replace all instances of x with 2 in our function. Right? 2 squared, which is 4. And similarly for g of x, if you wanted to evaluate g of 4, so just 2 times 4, which is 8. Right? We know how to do this. But what instead if our input wasn't a numerical value, but instead it was a function? For example, what about f of g of x? Right? How would we go about solving this? Well, it's the same thinking process for inputting a numerical value. When we inputted 2, we replaced all instances of x with 2. So now that we're inputting g of x, we're going to replace all instances of x with g of x. So this is equal to, instead of x, we're going to write g of x squared. Right? And this is equal to, we know what g of x is, right? G of x is given to us as 2x. We know this is equal to 2x quantity squared, which is equal to 4x squared. Right? What if we wanted to evaluate f of g of 3? How do we do this? Well, first what we need to do is we need to find what g of 3 is. Right? When we're doing composition of functions, we should always evaluate the inside piece first. Right? So first, what is g of 3? So g of 3 is equal to 2 times 3. Right? Which is 6. So f of g of 3 is basically equal to f of 6. Right? When we do the inside piece first, we do g of 3, right, which is 6. You plug that 6 back into f, so f of 6, and f of 6 is just 6 squared, which is 36. And yeah, so this is just a basic overview of composition of functions. All right, so now let's do some practice problems with that. Here's our first example of the day. So as usual, pause the video, try it on your own, and then press play when you're ready. All right, so we're given that f of x is equal to 2x minus 1. We know that g of x is equal to x squared plus 1. We want to know which of the following expressions represents f of g of x. Right? Well, we know f of x is 2x minus 1. So f of g of x, we would just replace every instance of x in f with g of x. So this would be equal to 2 times g of x minus 1. All right, and this is equal to, what is g of x? G of x, we know, is x squared plus 1. So this is equal to 2 times x squared plus 1 minus 1. This is equal to 2x squared plus 2 minus 1, which is simply equal to 2x squared plus 1. So therefore, our answer is choice G. Let's look at another one. Try this one now. All right, so we want to know the value of f of g of 1. And the first step in solving this composition is to evaluate what's on the inside. So we need to know what g of 1 is. So what is g of 1? Well, we look at our table. All right, we have g of x here. So g of x, this table gives the values for g of x at different x values. So we want to know what g of x is when x is 1. So we see x is 1 right here. So g of 1 is 2. G of 1 is 2. So f of g of 1, this is the same thing as saying f of 2. And f of 2 is what? Well, now we look at f of x evaluated at 2, right? Which is -6. Therefore, our answer is choice F, -6. All right, now you guys try this one. Okay, so we need to evaluate f of g of 3. And the first step in solving this is figuring out what g of 3 is equal to. G of 3 is what? Well, they give it to us. Tell us that g of 3 is 2. Right, so f of g of 3 is the same thing as f of 2. And f of 2, they give that to us as well, is equal to 3. Therefore, our answer is B, 3. Let's look at one more. Try this one now. All right, so we want to know f of g of 1/2. So the first step in solving this is evaluating the inside. So we need to know what g of 1/2 is. So we know that g of x is equal to 1 over x. So g of 1/2 is going to be equal to 1 over 1/2, right? And this is equal to 2. So g of 1/2 is equal to 2. So we know that f of g of 1/2 is the same thing as f of 2. And what's f of 2? We know that f of x is equal to x minus 1 over x. So evaluating this at x equals 2 will get us 2 minus 1 over 2. This is equal to 4/2 minus 1/2, which gives us a final answer of 3/2. So our answer is choice K.